would just have a little fun here and talk about intriguing teams in each division. We're not saying who's going to win the division. We've had that conversation. Right now, it's like, who's intriguing? Who are we most curious about going into the season? Let's start with that Metro division, because that might be the most wide open at this point. Who has you intrigued?
I fall in love with this segment. I'm so glad we did it. It was a great suggestion by Brandon in our research department, and glad we're kind of teasing out one club in each of the divisions. Jersey for me in the Metro for the following reason. Remember last year, finished in 7th place. Go back 2 years in time to, that was 22-23, right? 112 points.
Right.
2nd place, a point behind the Carolina Hurricanes. They were brilliant.
Beat the Rangers.
And came out of nowhere. That they just exploded onto the scene. Jack Hughes established himself in that year as a bona fide all-star. It was just a remarkable year, but a significant drop-off last year, without question. So here's a couple of things to focus on where the Rangers are concerned. In no particular, sorry, the Devils. You got me thinking Rangers there. Defense Corps. Dougie Hamilton, we anticipate Dougie's going to be healthy next year. They added a Brett Pesce. He comes over by way of a free agent signing from the Canes. This is a really solid defender. Got some offensive upside, but very skilled as a defender as well. And to me, key element in this won't show up on this slab that we're flashing you right now, but this is the way they should dress out. But as if in terms of the goaltending department, this has been a challenge really under the Tom Fitzgerald administration. And Fitzy goes out and he fixes this. Markstrom comes over, important transaction. They move on, Jersey does, from the Vanacek era. It's been a challenge to this point to get consistent, solid goaltending. And to me, the club in front of them, there lies a real challenge here as well. Remember Markstrom, as strong as he's been, and going back to the 21-22 season with Calgary, had a brilliant year, as did the entire club. But they lost a couple of key personnel, Gaudreau, Tkachuk. That team dropped off. And, you know, goaltending was rather mediocre. So the point I'm making is Markstrom can't do it by himself. The group in front of him really needs to make a contribution as well. But Jersey, for me, in the Metro is a team to keep an eye on. I think they're capable of just about anything.
Yeah, and I think that the team in front of him now in Jersey also should be better, because defensively they were young. You mentioned Dougie Hamilton out, but they also lost Severson. So some of those guys were barely cutting their teeth last year, and I think they should be improved on the blue line overall. So we'll see, but definitely something to watch. And Jack Hughes, too, healthy. He's 62 games only last year. So
big marks for their manager for addressing some problems in a meaningful way. So I think the core group, you know, you like that a lot. Some of the ads he's made, especially Markstrom, Pesce. Keep your eyes on Jersey, Devil fans.
Okay, how about elsewhere in the Eastern Conference? A coaching change north of the border, among other things in the Atlantic Division. I kind of alluded to it, but who do you think is intriguing up there in the Atlantic?
You know what? Of all the divisions, we were talking about this in production, the Atlantic Division, I mean, when you think about Buffalo, Ottawa, Detroit, Tampa even, like what are these groups capable of? But the Montreal Canadiens, for me, are a group
I thought you were going to say Toronto. You went Montreal? Okay,
I went Montreal.
Tell me more.
I went Montreal. You know, you like Marty St. Louis, but there are some real interesting question marks here. So they're 8th last year in the Atlantic Division. This is a group that, focusing on the forward core to start with, they're not terribly deep, but they've got a top 6 that really could be very dynamic. Slavkovsky, Caulfield, Newhook. These guys demonstrated last year they've got signs of being really bright, brilliant stars in the future, important contributors. If they can take a next step, move to another level, you like that there's some danger up front for this group. The D-core doesn't really jump off the page at you, but you're talking about guys like Savard and Matheson. These are guys that really, I think, give you a formidable, not brilliant, not overwhelming D-core, but a serviceable set to really get you through an 82-game schedule. So for me, I think there's a step forward coming for Montreal. I don't know that this is a 7th-place finisher. There is the makings. Again, a lot depends on that top 6 and how they mature, and if they can get an important contribution from their bottom 6, Montreal might be a club that surprises you.
And one guy named Patrick Laine who has a ton to prove, and he has come out to say that very publicly. So we'll see what he has to bring to the Montreal Canadiens. How about in the Central Division? A lot of teams with some new looks out there. Who has you most intrigued?
Well, I'll tell you, of all the teams in all the divisions, this was the easiest choice. Nashville, by virtue of the free agent period that they had this summer, far and away the splashiest offseason of any team in the group. Remember, this is a team last year that exceeded expectations. Not a lot of us anticipated, given the way they were built, that Nashville's going to be a playoff team last year. They took a bold step forward. And then Coach Trotz, now GM Trotz, goes out and makes a series of really meaningful transactions.
Look at that list. Oh, my gosh.
Start with those top 3. Steven Stamkos really almost speaks for itself, right? You signed the now former captain of the Tampa Bay Lightning, and as brilliant as he's been, we talked plenty about this on yesterday's show, but I want to focus on Jonathan Marchessault. Remember, this is a guy who's just been, I think he's emerged and played some of his best hockey, really hit not the ceiling, but exploded in a certain way and maybe punched through the ceiling in his 30s. This is a guy that's just really played some really inspired hockey.
Won the Conn Smythe a year ago.
Conn Smythe going back 2 years without question. Won a Conn Smythe, so another super ad by General Manager Trotz. And I think Brady Shea goes a long ways towards kind of bolstering that decor as well. You like the way they're constructed in the back end. And I'll tell you what, anytime you've got UC Saros battling back there for you as your number 1, to me, Nashville is capable of anything this year, in my estimation, especially if these new additions can kind of find a way to coalesce. Coach Brunette can find some meaningful, some chemistry in these line combinations. Nashville's got a lot going for it.
You said capable of anything. You think winning the division is possible even?
Oh, I think that's very possible.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's a tall order given the way the Central is built. It's a tall order, but I think there's a bold step forward in the cards for Nashville.
Exciting times on Broadway for sure. Finally, the Pacific Division.
Yeah.
Who's the most intriguing in that division that is intriguing as a whole?
Yeah, for me, it's the Vancouver Canucks. Let me start by making this point, Jamie. Players are people at the end of the day. Players are people. And when people have had success, there's an opportunity or maybe a proclivity to kind of maybe get a little fat and happy and take a step backward. Put a bunch of people together on the same team. Teams are a little bit like people. The challenge for these Canucks, remember, going back in time, when Coach Tocchet takes over, it's a challenge. He's midway through a season going back 2 years. It's a bit of a gong show. This team was underperforming, struggling to defend effectively, and it was a porous group. A brilliant turnaround this past year. First in the Pacific overall. The challenge for this group is distinct from any other of the other 3 we've mentioned to this point. I think it's on the leadership group and Coach Tocchet himself. You've got to find a way to point to and draw out some inspiration for these guys so that they can maybe equal or surpass what they accomplished last year. I think that's the real challenge for this Vancouver group. On paper, this group is brilliantly constructed. Thatcher Demko, I think, is dealing with something lower body that's maybe going to be a challenge for him going forward. That's an area of focus and attention for this group as well. But net, at the end of the day, this is a group that I think their biggest challenge is going to be, how do you at least match and surpass what you accomplished last year? Because we've seen a lot of teams like this.
Yeah.
We just talked about Jersey, and now I know there's some personnel challenges or explanations where Jersey was concerned 2 years ago to last year. But for this group, It's really going to be an emotional, a leadership, a character issue.
Yeah.
How do you find the inspiration to build on what you did last year and not take a step backward?
Yeah, that's a great question and a great challenge. We'll see how the Vancouver Canucks perform at the start of the season. Again, preseason action just about a week and a half away.